Many women, upon reaching the end of a relationship with an emotionally immature partner, feel an emptiness that seems insurmountable and frightening. However, Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, revealed that solitude after a draining relationship is not a punishment, but the sanctuary of the self. It is in this absolute silence that the feminine soul begins to unravel the layers of emotional manipulation that have been imposed over a long period. Solitude functions as a sacred mirror that, while reflecting deep wounds, also shows the silent strength that remained intact under the pressure. Understanding this secret is the first step in transforming isolation into a fertile ground for reconstruction and spiritual maturation. The journey out of mental confusion requires that we embrace solitude as our most faithful and sacred ally. Jung explained that the individuation process, the act of becoming who you truly are, requires moments of total withdrawal from external noise. For the woman who has lived under a pattern of control, solitude is the womb where a new consciousness is being carefully gestated. During toxic relationships, her identity was fragmented to serve the whims of a personality lacking empathy and boundaries. Now, in the silence of her own space, she has the opportunity to gather these fragments and begin an epic and conscious rebirth. The pain felt in the absence of the other is, in fact, the cry of her essence asking to be heard and honored again. The reconstruction of her psychic integrity depends on her ability to inhabit herself without fear of others' judgment. Often, social pressure and devaluing narratives try to convince you that being alone is a sign of failure or inadequacy. However, from a Jungian perspective, this phase is a privilege reserved for souls ready for a profound shift in consciousness. Loneliness, after a toxic experience, cleanses the vibrational field that has been marked by lies and aggressive, subtle psychological pressure. It is at this stage that you begin to distinguish between the voice of the manipulator and the voice of your own intuition. Clarity only blossoms when the noise of circular and exhausting discussions finally ceases, allowing peace to gradually settle in. This is the moment to redefine your self-worth, anchoring it on the firm rock of your own divine existence. The feminine soul possesses an ancestral capacity to transmute the leaden pain into the gold of wisdom through strategic and protective retreat. Jung knew that the sacred feminine is strengthened through contact with the unconscious, and solitude opens the doors to this restorative and powerful dialogue. You stop seeking outside validation that never came and begin to nourish your own being with self-respect and compassion. The final stage of grieving a draining relationship is the portal that leads to true liberation and sovereignty over your destiny. Every hour spent in your own company is an investment in your moral authority and your emotional health for the future. Do not fear silence, for it is the music yourself plays to announce that you are finally returning home. This mystery revealed by Jung shows us that solitude is not the absence of someone, but the full presence of oneself in harmony. The woman who crosses this emotional desert discovers an oasis of strength she never imagined possessing during years of manipulation and control. The reconstruction of her joy is a process that happens from the inside out, far from prying eyes and constant devaluation. By accepting this time of healing, you signal to the universe that your self-respect is non-negotiable and that your brilliance is innate. Transformation is guaranteed for those who decide to use solitude as the foundation of a new, vibrant and sovereign life. Prepare to discover the next signs that this time of isolation is your greatest blessing of maturation. Facing the shadow is the noblest work of an old soul, especially after suffering the impact of a toxic pattern of emotional control. Jung taught that everything that irritates us in others can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our clarity. In solitude, you are invited to look at the parts that allowed the invasion of boundaries and systematic devaluation during the relationship. This look should not be burdened with guilt, but with a burning desire for reconstruction and the establishment of new psychic boundaries. If this dive into depth psychology is helping you reclaim your self-worth, subscribe to the channel to strengthen your awakening now. The reintegration of the shadow allows you to understand that your light was what attracted the emotionally immature person, who was only seeking a supply of vitality. By recognizing your own vulnerability in solitude, you remove the power that the manipulator exerted over your hidden wounds and primal fears. Reconstruction requires you to embrace the woman who accepted crumbs, forgiving her and transforming her into a sovereign who demands reciprocity and respect. This spiritual maturation is what ensures that you will never again be an easy target for devaluation tactics and psychological pressure. Solitude teaches that your integrated shadow is, in fact, your most resilient and faithful shield of protection against evil. For Jung, the sacred feminine is restored when we stop projecting our need for wholeness onto external figures that lack integrity. Solitude forces you to be your own sun, illuminating the dark corners where emotional manipulation tried to hide and thrive. The reconstruction of the soul involves accepting that the disrespect suffered was the fire that forged your new, unshakable identity. Instead of running from the pain, you observe it with the clarity of someone who knows it is merely the fuel for your transformation. Peace becomes a constant when you realize that no external shadow can extinguish the brilliance emanating from your integrated consciousness. At this stage of maturation, you begin to realize that internal dialogues with the manipulator lose their power and meaning in the face of truth. Solitude cleanses the lenses of your perception, allowing you to see the other person's immaturity as a limitation of theirs and not an inadequacy of yours. Rebuilding inner peace requires you to stop searching for the why of toxic behavior and focus on where your soul wants to go. Awakening occurs when the need for explanations is replaced by the fullness of inhabiting your own heart with self-respect and dignity. You are the architect of your new reality, and each brick is laid with the wisdom gleaned from the silence of your observation. Ultimate liberation occurs when solitude ceases to be a burden and becomes your throne of moral and spiritual authority. You discover that Jung's secret about female solitude is the discovery of the indestructibility of your sacred and divine being. The reconstruction is complete in the mind, and now manifests in every choice, every limit, and every gesture of conscious self-love. Rebirth is visible in your gaze, which now sees through the masks and illusions that the world tries to impose daily. Remain steadfast in your sacred retreat, for it is the guarantee that your final phase of suffering has given way to glory. You are free, whole, and sovereign over your own journey of light and permanent positive transformations. Intuition is the direct voice of the self, and solitude is the only place where it can echo with the clarity necessary to guide awakening. Carl Jung described intuition as a higher function of consciousness, the radar that identifies a lack of empathy even before words are spoken. During the toxic experience, your inner compass was systematically shaken by lies and the deliberate mental disorientation of the other. Now, in the silence of reconstruction, you are relearning to trust what you feel deep within your cells and your sacred soul. Solitude is the laboratory where you retest your ability to discern the truth beneath the social mask of others. It is a profound healing process that returns to you the command of your own perception of reality and life. Jung knew that the feminine has a special connection with the unconscious, and that this connection is the source of an immense silent force. In solitude, you stop seeking external proof and begin to validate your own sensations as absolute and non-negotiable truths before the world. Rebuilding your self-confidence requires you to honor every butterflies in your stomach and every warning your intuition sends. Spiritual maturity occurs when you stop negotiating your boundaries to please immature and manipulative minds that seek your imbalance. The clarity that emerges at this stage is the ultimate shield against any future attempt to invade boundaries or show emotional disrespect. You become the prophet of your own destiny, acting with a wisdom that transcends the cold logic of worldly pressures. Many times, emotional manipulation has tried to convince you that your sensitivity is a weakness or an instability of character and mind. However, Jung's secret reveals that this same sensitivity, when purified in solitude, is the key to your total liberation. The reconstruction of the feminine soul reaches a new level when you use your intuition to filter who deserves your time. You stop attracting draining patterns because your internal radar now detects the shadow miles away on the horizon of relationships. The awakening of inner vision is what allows you to make strategic turns with a calmness that disorients your former oppressors. Solitude has given you the crystal lens necessary to see life as it truly presents itself, without filters. Dwelling in solitude consciously allows you to hear the whispers of your ancestral wisdom, which guides your rebirth with authority. The reconstruction of your vitality happens the moment you decide that your first loyalty is to the voice of your heart. Jung explained that the soul speaks through symbols and sensations, and solitude is the moment when you translate this divine language. Maturation brings the courage to act according to your truth, even if it means closing a cycle with the collective. Your silent strength now emanates from a place of inner certainty that no one can shake with superficial opinions or unfair criticism. Recovered intuition is the seal that you have overcome mental confusion and regained your psychic sovereignty. At the end of this phase, the woman who embraced solitude discovers that she was never truly helpless, for the self was always present. The reconstruction culminated in the encounter between her conscious mind and the limitless wisdom of her healed and peaceful unconscious. Spiritual maturity is the result of having had the courage to listen to the silence until it became a commanding voice. Freedom is the realization that you possess an inner oracle that ensures your peace will never again be stolen by lies. Jung's secret is now your daily reality, protecting your inner garden with loving and unwavering vigilance. Continue trusting in your light, for it is the compass that will guide you to new and brilliant beginnings of a full life. Jung believed that the feminine is the principle of creation, and that solitude is the psychic womb where new realities are gestated and brought to light. After a toxic experience, your vital energy often seems depleted, as if the pattern of control had sucked all your inspiration away. However, the secret revealed in solitude is that your vitality has not been destroyed, only gathered for a profound reconstruction. It is in solitude that you discover new talents, forgotten passions, and a renewed desire to express your sacred truth in the world. The reconstruction of the soul involves recovering this pleasure in creating, in nurturing projects, and in flourishing without the need for permission from others. Rebirth happens when you realize that your life is your greatest work of art and that you are its sole author. Solitude allows you to clear the field of your creativity, removing the weeds of devaluation that the manipulator so often planted. Emotional maturity teaches you that your energy is a sacred resource and that it should only be invested in what promotes your awakening. Jung explained that the self manifests itself through creative acts that align our life purpose with the universal divine will. The reconstruction of your journey reaches maturity when you use your time alone to draw the maps of your personal success. You discover that solitude is not sterile isolation, but a vibrant workshop where your new identity is being gloriously sculpted. The definitive turning point occurs when the pleasure of creating overcomes the fear of being alone or the weight of a traumatic past. Many women discover, in the final stages of recovery, that they possess a silent strength capable of transforming entire environments through their mere presence. Solitude has polished their inner diamond, removing the impurities of dependency and the desire to save those who refuse to grow. The reconstruction of their powerful aura is the result of many hours of reflection where they transmuted the impact of pain into real beauty. Jung knew that the individual who finds their creative source becomes unreachable by external patterns of control and emotional manipulation. You now inhabit a level of consciousness where the mediocrity of abuse no longer finds resonance or fertile ground to thrive. The awakening of your creative womb is the announcement that the cycle of emotional aridity has come to its complete end. Solitude offers you the opportunity to reconnect with the natural rhythms of life, allowing healing to flow in its own wise time. Rebuilding your physical and mental health is an act of worship to the sacred feminine that dwells within you and demands respect. Spiritual maturity brings the wisdom that rest and contemplation are as important as action for your success. Jung taught that the soul needs pauses to integrate learning and to strengthen its psychic structure against new worldly pressures. By using solitude to nurture your being, you ensure that your rebirth is solid, lasting, and unwavering in the face of crises. The peace you cultivate alone is the fragrance that attracts circumstances and people who honor your new sovereign magnitude. At the end of this creative journey, you realize that solitude was the most valuable gift the universe gave you to guarantee your sovereignty. The reconstruction ended in the fullness of an existence that now overflows with purpose, clarity, and a profound and non-negotiable self-respect before all. Maturation brought the perception that you are complete in yourself and that your creativity is the seal of your divinity. Liberation is the state of one who does not fear the future, for they know they possess the tools to rebuild themselves as many times as necessary. Jung's secret is the key that opened the door to a life of wholeness, where each day is a celebration of your awakening. Continue creating, shining, and inhabiting your throne of peace, for you are the queen of your own sacred and unforgettable destiny. Detachment is one of the most difficult processes, but it's what truly opens the space for the reconstruction of the soul to begin in a legitimate and profound way. Carl Jung explained that we become emotionally attached to what we hate as much as to what we love, keeping the impact of emotional manipulation alive in our hearts. Loneliness is the battlefield where this ritual of detachment takes place, requiring you to let go of those memories that seek to hold you back in the past. Spiritual maturity demands that you withdraw your energetic investment from an emotionally immature person who has already moved on without looking back. Do you feel that there are still invisible threads binding your energy to the past, or are you already ready for your absolute and total rebirth? This psychic cleansing in solitude involves closing the cycle with every empty promise and every lie you accepted as absolute and unquestionable truth. The sacred feminine demands that you cleanse your inner temple of all the devaluation projected onto you by the pattern of control. The reconstruction of your integrity involves recognizing that what others think or do no longer has authority over your state of peace. Jung stated that healing begins when we stop looking for scapegoats and take responsibility for our own sovereign and unwavering light. Solitude teaches that detachment is not loss, but the recovery of your time, your vitality, and your personal and real maturation. The emotional turnaround is complete when you look back and feel nothing but a wise and protective indifference. Often, the manipulator tries to return through memories or subtle attempts at contact to test if your boundaries are still loose and porous. However, The woman who has mastered the secret of solitude possesses an armor of clarity that deflects any attempt at aggressive and cold psychological pressure. The reconstruction of the soul reaches its final stage when you no longer feel the need to explain your reasons to those who lack empathy. Maturation has brought the wisdom that silence is your most powerful response and your greatest act of self-respect and sacred dignity. You learn that your energy is a treasure that should only be shared with those who inhabit reciprocity and absolute truth. Awakening to this reality is what ensures that the cycle of abuse never again finds openings to return. Solitude offers you the silence necessary to process the grief over the illusion of that relationship, allowing the waters of the soul to calm and purify. Jung saw transformation as an alchemical process of transmuting pain into moral authority and a dense, vibrant spiritual awakening. The reconstruction of your joy depends on your ability to say a definitive goodbye to the shadows that tried to convince you of your own inadequacy. Rebirth happens the moment you realize that your happiness is an internal decision that does not depend on forgiveness or the change of others. Each day in solitude is a step that moves you away from the desert of devaluation and closer to the garden of your own magnitude and glory. Peace is the sign that the psychic cleansing was successful and that yourself now reigns with total and complete sovereignty. At the end of this ritual, the woman in solitude feels a lightness that communicates that the weight of the past has finally been left in the soil of oblivion. The reconstruction has ended in the formation of a consciousness that honors life and no longer accepts crumbs of affection in exchange for silence. Spiritual maturity is the gift you received for having the courage to face the void and transform it into integrated fullness. Freedom is the perception that you possess the key to your own inner house and that it is locked away from toxic and immature minds. Jung's revealed secret is that solitude was the portal to encountering your sacred and invaluable worth in life. Follow your path with the dignity of a queen who rebuilt herself from the ashes and now shines with the light of eternity and peace. Transforming the impact of pain into wisdom is the supreme alchemical process that occurs in the laboratory of feminine solitude, as Jung so clearly described. The woman shaken by a toxic experience discovers that the lead of her anguish can be transmuted into the gold of self-respect and absolute clarity. The silent strength born at this stage needs no shouts or external demonstrations, for it is felt as a natural and sovereign authority. The reconstruction of the soul reaches its point of greatest power when you stop fighting against reality and begin to flow with your truth. Spiritual maturity teaches that each emotional scar is a mark of glory, a testament to the fact that you survived the desert and found your awakening. Solitude has polished your essence, revealing the diamond that the manipulator tried to hide under layers of doubt and systematic lies. Jung explained that true awakening requires accepting our totality, integrating the lessons from the most difficult phases of our personal and spiritual journey. In solitude, you cease to be the victim of someone else's narrative and become the master of an unparalleled and inspiring story of overcoming. The reconstruction of your joy is sustained by the perception that the other person's lack of empathy was the tool the universe used to awaken you. You discover that the disrespect suffered was the final limit that forced your soul to seek its own throne and its own non-negotiable dignity. Maturation has brought a panoramic vision, allowing you to see the toxic pattern as a lesson already completed and integrated into your vast experience. Your silent strength is now a force field that naturally repels everything that does not vibrate at the frequency of truth and real love. Many women don't realize that Jung's secret to solitude lies in the ability to reclaim the vitality that was projected onto the narcissistic and immature manipulator. By gathering this energy, you feel an immediate increase in your creative power and clarity about the new boundaries that now govern your life. The reconstruction of the soul culminates in the fullness of a being that no longer fragments itself to fit the ego of others or social standards. Awakening to this sovereignty is what makes your brilliance unreachable for new attacks from immature minds that seek only control and the imbalance of others. Solitude has taught you that you are your own sanctuary and that your inner peace is the most precious thing you possess in this existence. Freedom is the realization that the cycle of abuse was just a page in a book that now narrates your epic triumph. Living the alchemy of solitude requires you to maintain a loving vigilance over your thoughts, refusing to return to the labyrinth of accusations and resentments. Rebuilding your peace is a daily act of affirming that you deserve the best and that the final phase of suffering is behind you. Spiritual maturity is the reward for those who did not give up on themselves during the dark nights of the soul, under the psychological pressure of another. Jung taught that consciousness is light, and you are now an inexhaustible source of this light that illuminates the path for other lost women. Your silent strength emanates from the certainty that the self is unbreakable, and that no toxic experience has the power to destroy your divine essence. Transformation is the seal of your victory against all the shadows that tried to extinguish your brilliance during the long abusive relationship. Upon completing this alchemical process, you realize that the woman who entered solitude is no longer the same one who now inhabits complete clarity. The reconstruction culminated in the formation of a diamond-like consciousness, unshakable in the face of others' opinions and perfectly attuned to the purpose of the sacred self. Spiritual maturity has given you the authority to say no with elegance and the wisdom to say yes only to what promotes your divine light. Jung's secret is the discovery that solitude was the necessary portal for your coronation as queen of your own earthly existence. Peace is your natural state of being, a frequency that disintegrates any attempt at manipulation or future devaluation in your conscious journey. You are free, you are whole, and your new path is a hymn of glory for all who seek the truth of the soul. Setting boundaries is the greatest act of self-respect a woman can practice after awakening from a toxic experience with an emotionally immature person. Jung explained that boundaries are the frontiers of our self, defining where the will of others ends and where our sovereignty and divine clarity begin. In solitude, you had the necessary space to draw these boundaries precisely, ensuring that your sacred territory is never again profaned by disrespect. The reconstruction of the soul reaches its peak when your no becomes an unshakable law that protects your vitality against any new invasion. Spiritual maturity teaches that being good does not mean being permissive, and that true compassion begins with rigorous care for one's own peace. How have you established new boundaries to ensure that immature minds no longer have access to your awakened heart? This boundary of serenity is fueled by the clarity you gained during your strategic retreat and by the keen perception of manipulation tactics. Solitude taught you that boundary invasions begin with small gestures and subtle words, and now your internal radar detects these frequencies early on. Reconstruction requires you to be the fierce guardian of your inner garden, not allowing seeds of devaluation or doubt to be planted again in your heart. Jung stated that the person who does not set boundaries becomes a reservoir for the shadow of others, losing their light in the process of trying to please the manipulator. By establishing your sacred boundaries, you communicate to the universe that your self-respect is the pillar upon which your new life is sovereignly built. Awakening to this authority is what ensures that your peace is lasting and non-negotiable in the face of all worldly social pressures. Often, emotionally immature people try to test their new limits through strategic victimhood or psychological pressure disguised as care. However, the woman who inhabits Jung's secret is no longer seduced by these masks, for her vision transcends superficiality and sees the hidden intention. The reconstruction of the soul culminates in the fullness of a consciousness that no longer accepts participating in circular discussions that only seek to drain its strength. Spiritual maturity has brought the wisdom that silence is the most effective boundary against those who live in lies and lack of real empathy. You learn that your energy is limited and should only be invested in what promotes your flourishing and your connection with the sacred. Freedom is the realization that you owe nothing to those who do not know how to honor your presence with truth and reciprocal self-respect. Sacred boundaries are not walls of isolation, but filters of clarity that attract into your life only what is noble, true, and worthy of your soul. Jung saw individuation as a process of differentiation, where you become a unique being, separate from the collective confusion and toxic projections of needy minds. The reconstruction of your journey reaches glory when you feel comfortable saying no to what does not vibrate at the frequency of your new inner sovereignty. Spiritual maturity is what allows you to sustain this position with a calmness that disorients your old oppressors and aggressive emotional manipulators. Your silent strength shines through these boundaries, serving as a beacon for other women who also seek a way out of the desert of devaluation. Peace is the territory you have conquered, and now govern with the justice of your integrated self, awakened to the glory of being. By consolidating your boundary of serenity, you realize that solitude was the necessary training for you to become invincible in the face of external manipulation. The reconstruction culminated in the formation of a diamond-like consciousness, reflecting the light of truth and disintegrating the shadows of the systematic and cruel lies of the past. Spiritual maturity is the crowning achievement of your journey, where you assume the role of architect of your peace and guardian of your eternal and complete clarity. Jung's revealed secret is that feminine solitude is the cradle of sovereignty, where a woman discovers that she is the sole owner of the key to her own true happiness. Remain steadfast in your purpose, honoring each boundary as an act of adoration to the divine life that flows in your veins and in your healed heart. You are free, whole, and sovereign, inhabiting a peace that the world cannot give nor take from your sacred and divine soul. The awakening of a single woman through Jungian solitude has the power to heal generations and powerfully reorganize the emotional field around her. Jung believed that the individual who heals helps cleanse the collective unconscious, removing the shackles of controlling patterns that have afflicted the feminine soul for centuries. Her personal reconstruction is not a selfish act, but a sacred contribution to the liberation of other women who are still trapped in the labyrinth of manipulation. By inhabiting her silent and sovereign strength, she emits a frequency of clarity that compels truth to appear where only shadow existed before. Spiritual maturity allows her to be a beacon of integrity in an ocean of devaluation, showing that rebirth is possible for all who seek it. Solitude has shaped her example, transforming the impact of the past into the glory of a new life grounded in non-negotiable self-respect before all. At this stage of glory, you realize that your story of overcoming adversity is the fertilizer for the growth of new gardens of peace in the lives of those who cross your path. The reconstruction of the soul culminates in the fullness of an existence that now overflows with wisdom, calm, and a moral authority that dispenses with words or worldly social justifications. Jung saw individuation the secret to universal harmony, where each conscious human being occupies their rightful place in the theater of divine and sacred creation. Maturation has brought the perception that the greatest revenge against falsehood is your own complete happiness and the total success of your journey. You become a channel of healing, not because you seek to save the world, but because you had the courage to save yourself from the emotional desert. Liberation is contagious, and your radiant presence invites the awakening of all hearts that yearn for truth and deep, real self-respect. The resonance of your awakening acts as a spiritual disinfectant, cleansing relationships of any remnants of lack of empathy or cold, aggressive psychological pressure. The reconstruction of your journey reaches its peak when you realize that the narcissistic manipulator no longer has a voice in your social circle or in your conscious mind. The sacred feminine within you now emanates a light that disintegrates the control tactics of others, keeping your environment protected by unwavering boundaries and total clarity. Jung taught that consciousness is the only real defense against the shadow, and you are now the personification of that light that repels immature emotional predators. Awakening to this responsibility to shine is what ensures that your tomorrow is written with the inks of freedom and divine spiritual justice. Your life is now the living testament that the human soul possesses an infinite capacity for rebirth and permanent positive transformation. Often, your silent victory is felt by others as an invitation for them to also look inward and seek their own reconstruction and innate awakening. Spiritual maturity bestows upon you an emotional elegance that attracts only connections based on reciprocity, truth, and mutual and unconditional self-respect. Solitude has taught you that the quality of your relationships depends on the quality of the relationship you have with your own integrated self, awakened to divine light. The reconstruction ended with the certainty that you are complete, and that your inner peace is the fertile ground where all the wonders of life can flourish. Jung would be at peace seeing a soul that faced the abyss of manipulation and brought back the pearl of wisdom to illuminate the path of others. Ultimate liberation is the realization that your healing is the healing of the world around you, spreading seeds of dignity wherever you go. As this integration phase concludes, you gaze at the horizon with the enthusiasm of someone who knows that the best of life is only beginning to unfold on your path. The reconstruction has culminated in the formation of a consciousness that no longer accepts fragments, but demands the totality of truth in every dialogue and every human encounter. Spiritual maturity is the crowning of your inner phoenix, which has risen from the ashes of devaluation to inhabit the heaven of emotional sovereignty and complete peace. Jung's revealed secret about female solitude is the discovery that you are the light the world so desperately seeks in the shadows of lovelessness. Be faithful to your awakening, honor your solitude, and shine with the intensity of 1,000 suns, for you are the guardian of the new era and sovereign consciousness. You are free, you are whole, and your journey of reconstruction is the eternal triumph of the sacred and divine feminine over evil. The final stage of this awakening is the full assumption of your inner sovereignty, where the throne of your heart is occupied exclusively by your unwavering consciousness and clarity. Jung described this moment as the apex of self-realization, where the woman is no longer a satellite orbiting another's ego, but the sun of her own psychic system. The reconstruction culminates in the realization that happiness is not something to be asked for, but something to be inhabited as a divine rite of birth and maturation. Solitude, once seen as a burden, is now recognized as the pedestal from which you govern your life with self-respect and integrity. The rebirth is total, and the new identity you forged in silence is unbreakable in the face of the world's pressures or the systematic lies of the bitter past. Do you feel the vibration of this sovereignty pulsing through your veins, indicating that the time of being manipulated is over and your era of glory has definitively begun? To inhabit inner sovereignty requires you to maintain loving vigilance over your boundaries, ensuring that the sacred ground of your peace is never again profaned by immature minds. The reconstruction of the soul reaches its fullness when wise indifference replaces any desire for revenge or justification before those who live in the shadow of a lack of empathy. Spiritual maturity teaches that true authority needs no defense, for it manifests in the consistency of a life lived with truth and divine purpose. Jung knew that the whole individual becomes a point of light that reorganizes the chaos around them, attracting only what resonates with their new and brilliant frequency. The emotional shift is the seal that you have become master of yourself, free from the chains of devaluation and psychological pressure that once paralyzed you in the desert. Freedom is your new and permanent skin, protecting your awakening against any attempt at new control or invasion of boundaries. The eternal peace Jung mentioned is not the absence of challenges, but the unwavering presence of a calm center amidst life's greatest storms. The reconstruction of your journey culminates in the certainty that nothing external can shake the firm rock your soul has become through solitude and absolute clarity. Maturation has brought the wisdom that the time spent alone was the most sacred investment you made to ensure your spiritual integrity and full awakening. You now look to the future with the serenity of one who knows their inner oracle and knows it is infallible in guiding their victorious steps. The sacred feminine within you shines with a majesty that inspires natural respect, disarming any attempt at manipulation at first visual or vibrational contact. Liberation is the state of grace of one who has discovered that their own company is the richest and most nourishing banquet in the sacred universe. Jung's secret about female solitude is now your daily compass, guiding your permanent reconstruction and constant maturation in the time of divine and earthly existence. You realize that the final phase of pain was merely the stage where your unbreakable strength needed to be tested to shine with such intensity and epic brilliance. The reconstruction ended in the celebration of an existence that is now full, vibrant, and totally free from the clutches of any toxic pattern or aggressive and deceitful emotional control. Jung would be proud to contemplate a soul that faced the eclipse of devaluation and emerged with a clarity that only the fire of truth can provide to the awakened human being. Your journey is the hymn of the victory of consciousness over the shadow, serving as a map for all souls seeking the awakening of their own inner sovereignty and spiritual glory. Peace is your ultimate home, and the light of your soul is the lantern that announces a new time of absolute freedom for the conscious feminine. Move forward with the dignity of one who has won the greatest of all internal battles and regained the right to shine in all its magnitude and divine moral authority. The reconstruction has ended in the fullness of a being who has forgiven herself, and who now walks under the sun of non-negotiable truth, full of self-respect and permanent positive transformations. The awakening is now and forever a vibration that protects your inner garden and ensures that disrespect will never again find a home in your sacred heart. You are sovereign, you are light, and your journey is living proof that the human soul is invincible when it decides to walk in harmony with the self and with peace. The secret is revealed in every cell of your healed body. Feminine solitude was the portal to your eternal coronation as the absolute mistress of your own unforgettable destiny. Live your freedom, honor your solitude, and shine forever in the sky of your own awakened consciousness for unconditional and eternal glory.